Welcome everyone. Today we have our another symposium. We will discuss on innovation for inclusive growth. We have our world famous speaker, Mr. Robin Daly, Mr. David Smith, and Mr. Jamaluddin. Mr. Jamaluddin, if you actively join in our symposium, please open your camera because it's going to live in different social media as well as in different media. Mr. Robin Daly, how you want to define innovations for inclusive growth?
Well, so innovation for inclusive growth. Here you're talking about looking at existing structures and recognizing that the current plans and policies that you have in effect are not adequate to cover the diversity in your population. And so what you do then is you look for ways to make changes that will be acceptable to the populace that would improve inclusivity. What you don't want to do is what we did here in the U.S., where we try to hard pivot. If you're not speaking, please mute your microphone. So don't do what we did in the U.S., which is where we tried to drive inclusivity through force. Created a concept called wokeism, or being woke, and it was repositioned rather rapidly by the conservative, and not only rapidly but successfully by the conservative part of the country. And much of the progress that had been made under the liberal administration was, I should say, not much, virtually all, and then some, was reversed, and the progress was dismantled. This has got to be something that's done with the cooperation of the people you're doing it with. You don't want to create a situation where the people that have the majority feel that they're being devalued or disadvantaged, and because they're going to fight back, and because they're in the majority, they're clearly going to have the ability to fight back successfully. So there really has to be an effort to both train people up and to assure that people that are existing, that have the existing power structure, don't feel threatened and aren't damaged, and then use lots of simulation and clearly trial in regions that are going to be more susceptible to change, and to learn from those experiences. So you're approaching the problem with knowledge. You're not just throwing crap against the wall and hoping it's going to stick, which often is the case when we have folks that are trying to orchestrate change. They want to do things very suddenly. One other bad example from the United States was the EOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, that was created back in the 70s. And the reason for it was that, again, it tried to force inclusivity by providing effectively quotas that put people into jobs they weren't qualified for. In all cases, the underlying problem was education. One of the main reasons why, and by the way, my entire career's changed over this. My first 4-year degree was in manpower management, which is now an educational path that no longer exists, and doesn't exist in business anymore either. And what made manpower management very different than human resources was the focus was on scientific evaluation and putting people in the best jobs, in the jobs they were best trained for, and the jobs they were best suited for, both mentally and emotionally. But the problem was, at the time, and the reason it was disbanded, was the people that were the most trained were white guys, and the minorities and women were not making it through the same colleges, weren't getting the same mentoring opportunities. And so when you applied the analysis, it said, hey, well, white guy's better trained. He's white guy's going to be better skilled, because that's what had happened up to that particular point. So the fix should have been to fix the skilling and education and support structure, not force fit minorities into jobs they were unqualified for, which actually just made the problem worse. Because then you had people that were saying, hey, I'm more qualified. Why is that other person that has a different ethnicity getting the job and I'm not? And so the concept of reverse discrimination came up, though it really is just discrimination. It's not anything reverse. It's just what you're doing is you're orchestrating discrimination, and you're not putting the most qualified person in the job. You're putting the person from a particular minority in the job. And frankly, in many cases, the people that were putting these jobs were absolutely unqualified. In some cases, they actually did a better job than their white counterparts. An interesting study at Google indicated that women managers who had not gone through engineering training, software engineering training, were actually better outperforming their male counterparts that had. And that's the kind of information you need to really build an organization. Then I'll leave you with the countries that seem to be doing the best job here. And there's probably a consistent theme between these countries. Switzerland is ranked number one. And here I'm using the innovation ranking that was done by what's it done by? United Nations. And so Switzerland was ranked first. And it was ranked first because of high quality public education and vocational training. So right to the heart of it. They fixed their education system, and therefore they had a much higher rate of innovation and inclusivity. Sweden made it because they had a much stronger social net combined with high digital literacy, so that they spread the literacy across their entire ecosystem, so people were trained up and they could perform. Again, focusing on the fundamentals, not creating a forcing function to put minorities in jobs they were unqualified for. They were making sure the minorities were qualified, and once qualified, they could perform. Singapore, world leader in digital public infrastructure and skills training. The incredibly aggressive in terms of inclusivity and getting the citizens to participate in government and making government much more effective at how it did things. Finland, excellence and equitable access to research and ICT infrastructure, again, assuring that people from all different backgrounds got access to the resources they need. And finally, China, who would have never been on this list 10 years ago, and mostly due to the rapid expansion of high-tech manufacturing and rural digital access. So they've been spreading the stuff, their capabilities out to rural areas, getting them to participate. You might recall that initially they were doing a lot of things really badly. They were forcing folks to come in from the farms that were unqualified to work in the factories. And then the factories became kind of like prisons in a way. And you had a much higher instance of suicide and the rest that came out of that. But they've since mitigated, recognized the problem, and moved to address it. And one of the markets that I follow closely, EVs, if it were for tariffs, they would have taken out Stellantis, GM, and Ford by now. So very effective in terms of creating an ecosystem that has been very profitable and effective for the country, and increasingly effective for its population. Now pass to David.
Thank you. Mr. David Smith, how you want to define inclusive growth, as well as how can innovation be designed to ensure benefit rich, marginalized, and low-income communities?
Well, Dr. Sharif, thank you. I love Rob's comments, even though I will take a little bit of exception as I look at inclusive growth. If you look at inclusive growth, in my mind, it's new technologies, systems, new products, new models that really transform how societies operate. And it's designed so that the benefits go to a wide range of society and stakeholders. And it should be broad-based and really done in shared prosperity. And while I agree with Rob that oftentimes you see innovation for inclusive growth being done to address differences within it, my experiences with starting up some of the country's most progressive consortia, where very competitive industries in the semiconductor industry and the computer industry came together to do joint collaborative research. I think part of the answer to it is really looking at a way to understand what each of the shareholders, each of the ecosystems have. I use a term called care about analysis. What do they care about? And then I use some tools similar to what Rob mentioned, but in some different ways. We did extensive stakeholder analysis to look at each of the different people who were involved in the innovation and in the growth, to understand that, and then put strategies in place to make sure that as we looked at those stakeholders, using traditional stakeholder analysis, using impact wheels, using other tools like that, that their needs were met. And that was one place where, as we were trying to work on the innovations, particularly the broad ones that transcended any company, that the different areas were represented and used within the domain for that. And so you begin to look back and find out not just what you're trying to do, but you need to really look and say, who are the main stakeholders? Who are the problem owners? Who are the other folks? All too often, when we're trying to look at innovation, we treat people as only owners and not as beneficiaries. And to me, you have to look beyond that. And I believe as we look at really strategic innovation, that you have co-designers because they are ones that help build the system. And Dr. Shreve, I think when I throw into the equation inclusive growth in your question here, and in the topic here, we had talked before that when you have large innovation and big areas of society, the cities and things, they're a really hard first marketplace for things like that. That it would be really prudent to go ahead and build, distribute into the more rural areas where you do not have the embedded things. So look at the rural areas, look at things like communities, microgrids, look at where you can scale across that. And then as you get the experience with taking the innovation and maturing it, and where you get the experience of understanding the stakes for inclusiveness, that you can grow and really flow back to the broader set of that. One of the things I find interesting about innovation is too many people believe innovation's a thing, just like too many people believe technology's a thing. My definition of technology is the application of knowledge to achieve an outcome, to achieve a good. And I think that's innovation as well. So when you look at this for particularly inclusive growth, you need to invest in human capability and not just the technology. And we've talked, Shreve, often about lifelong learning, but it's digital skills training, it's apprenticeships, it's AI-enabled tools that augment workers and not replace them. And it's how do you put the credentials, the certifications, the degree programs in place that can be tied to the local industry needs and begin to do that. And I'm going to go back to something I learned very well in my entire career earlier. You have to build coalitions that share risk, share rewards, from things like what we did with Technopolis to how we form consortia and other things like that. And that these have to involve the different parts of the Technopolis, the local government, the national government, small, medium enterprise, larger companies, universities, technical institutes, investors, and others like that, because this type of collaboration creates alignment. And that creates inclusiveness. It reduces risk. It accelerates deployment. And you really see that this is where it is. So inclusive innovation is a design choice. It's a systems architecture. It's a governance model. It's an economic strategy, as well as a strategy for meeting the needs, the future needs of society, and continuing to advance it. So, Dr. Shreve, that's my answer.
Thank you. Mr. Jamal, can you hear me? Mr.
Yes,
Jamaluddin?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah. So I know that you are from Bangladesh. So how you want to define innovation for inclusive growth based on Bangladesh?
Yeah, thank you very much to allow me talking in the platform. For me, the perspective on Bangladesh, innovation means and define people here like doing the things in different way. So it could be knowledge based, it could be technology based, um, and in current state, AI is another ingredient that is very much lucrative subject matter that is widely used in different way in defining the product, marketing, and also connecting the people from different community. So although in Bangladesh, the technologically we are far from behind from the other world, but there is a strong let's say ingredient and the knowledge base is developing here because in business locally and globally connected each other, and that's why it's due to the development of information technology, people cannot say restricted themselves only in the local market, so they have to comply with the global requirement. So in traditional mindset is gradually changing, and they are accepting the changing world, and that is how the things are changing. Say for example, in Bangladesh there are a lot of issues in development of the human rights, as well as the agriculture sector, the say industrial sector and business community. But and there is a new demand for defining the different type of solution to connect the rural people, connect the say disconnected people residing in the remote area. So there is a extended need of say changing the mindset of the people and requirement of new things to do the things in different way. So over the time, people are demanding the changing. Say for example, say people in earlier days they are communicating only with say writing the things, say letter, say postal service, etc. But you see, in current day, people are widely connected through social media, and you can also understand in the recent regime change, the social media have played a strong role to perform. So, and another thing is the new generation. There is a more than 50% population are young generation, and these people have different outlook, and they are more connected with the global citizen rather than the older people. So the innovation say the connecting the excluded people in the society. That innovation is very much demanding here. So as I work in development sector as well as in the private sector, I do understand that there is a strong demand in innovation in Bangladesh to develop in both the area. So that is overall perspective from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jamaluddin sir. From our World Talent Economic Forum, we published this book, Economics of Talent Management and Human Capital. It's also published through Princeton University in USA. You know, Princeton University Library is one of the highly prestigious university as Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan is the highly density populated countries, and we have huge amount of youth populations. Like Bangladesh has around 57% youth from 171 million people. So if we can utilize the innovations of human resources, utilize this human capital, we can bring more financial growth, economic growth, and we can build up a ecosystem for our Bangladesh. That's why we are working together, and we want to work with Global North and South Asia together. Mr. Gary, how you want to define this inclusive growth, and what's your thought about uh, these questions? How can innovation be designed to ensure benefit rich, marginalized, and low-income communities? Gary, you have experience to work in Africa, and how you want to share your experience with us.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Sharif, and thank you, other guests. One of the things that a country or an area or whatever has to start out with is they have to, I feel, go to the government, go to the Chamber of Commerce, and first thing you need to figure out is what jobs are needed. Who needs what positions? Do they need managers? Do they need workers? Do they need janitors? Do they need delivery people? Do you need salespeople? Because I think a lot of times people present and offer programs and training programs that's one size fits all. And I feel like that for training, you got to train for what you're looking for. If you got managers, train managers. Middle managers have different training than CEOs in that section. They have different trainings than the supervisors and the sales crew. They have different training with the marketing people. So first thing I think you need to do is you need to figure out what areas is that town, city, state, country, where are they hurting? Do they need more, laborers? Do they need more people for IT and things like that? So once you figure that out and once you know where you're at, now set up sales programs and training programs that fit around those needs. I think I spent 15 years in Uganda and I went around the whole country. I have a NGO there that we do piggeries. And we go to an area where my mom used to say, they're so poor they can't pay attention. So you go to an area where the income is very low, and we pick 40 families and we give them a piglet, and we section them off into 10 sections each, and each of the 10 we give a boar to one of the leaders of the section. So we go in and we go on the village level, and have trainings, as they say, under the mango tree. So that's the bottom of being able to get to everybody. And then you go from government to what jobs that you need, what training you need to do to fill those positions and to fill them professionally. And then go to the villages and go to the smaller areas. So I think it would be a thing of bringing in as in Uganda, they had LCs, LC1, LC2, LC2, LC5. I feel like that they would dedicate a person for that village or that town that's going to do train the trainers. So you bring them into one area and you train them and you teach them on the segments and how to find the different programs, how to use the AI to find out if you're looking for salespeople. Okay, tell me the attributes you need looking for salespeople and things like that, and help go there, and you train them to go down to their village and their towns and their areas to train the people that are going to train the villagers and the people that live in those areas. I feel like with every training that you do, you always have people that excel, and you always have people that kind of flounder and trip and fall. So you look at those people. So you analyze those people. Now you can see what kind of work pool you have. You've got people, these 100 people, they can do anything that we need them to do. Now you start training them in the training that they have just gone through, and then bring them into the big cities if that's what they're going to do. All of these trainings and these things that we're going to do, that we will do with people that are not working. at this point. People that are working, that's a different level. That's a whole different training. But we're trying to go to people that are not working and help them get a job and help them learn to where they can fit into their area that they're in, or their city that they live outside of, or their state or their country or whatever it is, that they fit in there and they can excel and they can do well there and succeed. And at that point, the world is wide open. We should have it available on internet or whatever we do. Any of the trainings that we do and that we do out there, we should put it in and have an archive where people can connect to it and they can move up as they train and do. And I find when you do this, you do have a lot of people in every town, every village, and everywhere in the world where you have the lazy people, you have the hustlers. You have the people that are great, doing farms and things like that. Then you have the other side that it's great doing IT. Well, by doing it like this and spreading it out amongst everyone, I think you can see and you can go to the bottom degree to find the people that want to do better, that's mentally and physically capable of doing better, but they just don't have a chance because they live in a village outside of Jinja in Uganda. And nobody even knows they exist. Nobody even knows they're there, but they have started seeing some different books that they've been reading about. There's more that they can do. A lot of these people in Uganda, they've never seen a TV before. So they don't know what's available. They don't know what's out there. They don't know what the better world is. Well, once you introduce people to these trainings and to the opportunities, then a lot of the people that would never have a chance to get out and do anything, now they have a chance to do it. You start up an incubator in each of these little towns where you bring people in, you teach them how to sell, you set them up, let them set up a business in town somewhere, you help them get the business set up, so now the businesses are growing and you're doing better. And then as they grow and they do, some will be able to go to bigger and better things, some will go out of business, and some will stay there where they are. But at least by doing it like this, you cover a lot of the people that are forgotten, maybe is a way to put it, that you get to cover those people and you get to bring the best of the best out, and you give opportunities to people that never would have the opportunity before. So that's one thing that doing this NGO with my piggeries, that's one thing that I did see and did find, that there are some really, really qualified and some good people out there that we do miss by not getting out there and not offering things across the board. So that, and I think, I think physical as well as AI needs to be joined in together. And most of these places in Africa, I remember when I went there in 2000, there was more per capita, there was more mobile phones than anywhere in the world was in Africa. Everybody had two, it seemed like, in Uganda. So they can get on the internet, they can find AI, they can write programs like that. So you got to intertwine those two together, and the opportunity is what they want it to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rob. My next question for you: what role do government and policy play in promoting inclusive innovation ecosystem?
Well, they play a significant role. They've got a number of levers that they can pull. They can provide incentives. They can put in place penalties. I used the example of the EEOC before, and it mostly had penalties in place. But you can also put in place incentives for government contracts. The only countries that comply with a certain amount of demonstrated inclusivity training and activity can apply these, and the companies are audited to make sure they're not. I've had this experience before where a company may on paper say that they comply with a particular regulation, but it's just on paper. If you don't have audit capability, that paper is pretty much not worth what the paper costs, let alone a directive from the firm as to what in fact they're doing. They can do a number of things right now that are a little different. They can adopt open AI models to make sure the models are understood and they're not designed to favor a particular group, organization, or company, and build localized applications so that the the model reflects the population that it's servicing. You can focus on mobile first, which is something I think we should have been doing for a while and haven't. I think COVID kind of showcased the problem of not being mobile first. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of people are currently disenfranchised because they don't live in cities and they don't live near the companies that they otherwise might work for. So looking at mobile first, allowing and enabling and assuring that qualified people, regardless of where they are, can compete for a particular job or opportunity, and then create regulatory sandboxes. Particularly for emerging economies, like you mentioned, Bangladesh can attract tech investment by creating flexible sandboxes that allow for faster testing of things like autonomous vehicles, drones, or drone-based delivery mechanisms for medicine. For instance, the West right now, all those are bogged down terribly by regulation. And in an emerging economy, you can often get around. Well, one, you may not even have those regulations to begin with, but you can be much more effective at removing them and then turn your environment into a testing environment where you're testing these things where the more developed nations, they just can't get through the regulatory crap and actually get into a testing phase. All those things can be done to really help innovation, inclusive innovation. And then one final thing, make sure that the people, the groups, the organizations that are making the decision with regard to the application of technology and education are as diverse as the people that they are overseeing. You need the people making the decisions need to have access to the minorities, and those minorities need to have a voice in the decisions. Otherwise, they're likely to become disenfranchised. What might work for me, an older white guy, may not work for a woman of color. And there's no way I would know that unless she was on my team. So it's very important that the decision matrix includes people from the very minorities that it's going to serve. Otherwise, those minorities are going to continue to be disenfranchised.
Thank you. Mr. David Smith, as you are expert of artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and AI, how can digital technologies like AI and fintech reduce inequality instead of widening it? What's your thought about this digital ecosystem, digital infrastructure, intelligent infrastructure?
Well, what's interesting to your question, Dr. Sharif, is there's a lot of research in this area and some reporting some really credible places of how it can be used there. So, number one, for example, in the financial services areas, AI can expand the access to them. It can break down traditional barriers, things like credit history, language literacy, and others. And what we're seeing, particularly in fintech, is a lot of voice-first type of interfaces. And these become actually digital coaches with the most progressive ones there to help people with low literacy or limited financial knowledge access services they previously couldn't, which I think is a very powerful tool because people do not feel as ashamed talking to AI as they do a real person in many instances when they don't know the answers. And you're seeing more and more AI tools looking at the total ecosystem of the people as opposed to just a formal credit score, which I think is going to help people have an impact where more people can save, borrow, invest, and build wealth. You're going to see that it increases financial inclusiveness at scale. And this is particularly true in emerging economies where mobile money, digital wallets rely on cash. And these low cost, in many instances, transfers help families manage the volatility in there. And we're seeing that more microfinance, more small lending platforms expand the access to capital driven by the AI tools that are being used. We all know that AI can help prevent fraud, better manage our risks, but we also know that AI is making it harder to be secure, harder to look at privacy tools and others. So that is a cat and mouse game. But AI can be on the protection side as well as the bad guy side on that. One of the things I find real interesting with some of the AI tools is it really helps us get personalized advice. I know personalized sounds strange, but as an AI begins to know more of you and what you ask and what you do, and if you have the account and continue to use it, it actually begins to personalize recommendations for you. And this really helps you feel more comfortable about what to do in fintech and the tools to use there. And, you know, AI can reduce inequality really if it is applied across the entire ecosystem. You know, it needs to begin to look at what can be done at the labor market side, what can be done at the blue collar, as well as what can be done at the white collar jobs too. And again, there's some bias that you have to safeguard with it. So we've talked about on many of your programs, Dr. Shreve. You know, how do you look at the algorithm bias? How can you look at the bias of geography, the bias of the traditional cultural bias, sexual bias, and all those, and they have to be done there. But while AI in finance can reduce inequality when they expand, but they also need to have a very strong ethical and a very strong regulatory framework to be successful in those areas, Dr. Shreve.
Thank you. Mr. Jamal, can you share some of the barriers for these innovations, or how Bangladesh developing framework to overcome from these innovations and innovation growth?
Thank you, Mr. Sharif, to give me the opportunity again. In Bangladesh, the things of development in different sectors are gradually progressing. However, there is some barriers in different areas. Say, for example, our private sector in Bangladesh is far ahead than uh, government or public sector, and the private sector actually they are dealing all those things locally and internationally to safeguard their businesses. And in most of the business case, you see there is a extended demand of the development or say information technology and say security issues. Say for example, in a private bank, they need huge safeguard to for their customer management as well as their financial security their own self. But that same thing are not happening in the government bank, and the government bank are far away to give the customer support in that extended way like the private bank are doing. Similarly, similar things are also happening in the non-formal, say, the non-banking financial institution. Nowadays, they are also far ahead by using the technology, and the customer management is prompt than the previous days, because in earlier days, only they have to depend on telephone side, but nowadays they are communicating through social media, as well as they have established on their own channel by using the different technology. So they are closely connecting with the customer, and they are far say prompt to give the service to the customer immediately. In the other way, you can see in our earlier days, there is a huge now multiple days to process a bank loan for a client, but nowadays it's a matter of one day. They can just receive the application through online, and they just give the approval from different head in the same day. Even they can approve all those things by an hour. So that is how the things are moving. But these things are not equally happening in the government sector. Say, for an example, you see there are multiple operators in Bangladesh in telecommunication or mobile segment. But you see the government-owned telecommunication or mobile is behind than the private one. Similarly, if you look into the airlines, you see only the private companies. They are strong in the market. They are faster customer service. They are giving them ticketing and other services through online, and they also taking the payment and everything through online. But the government, Bangladesh Biman, also trying to do the same, but then there is a huge lack, especially the customer service. So, my understanding, one of the biggest barrier, mindset of the public sector and the private sector, and the other thing is that the utilization and straight from say utilization of the recent innovation in the rural area, and how to shape it up, that is a great lacking. Say, for example, you see there is a great thing in the social media to spread the good thing at a time throughout the country. But there is a bad thing is also happening. There is a lot of miscommunication also happening in the different way. So the screening and protecting these miscommunication is also a barrier. So the awareness among the people, especially in the rural area, also a barrier to for innovation. Because the aware people or the educated people are mostly say ready to accept the innovation. At the same time, the illiterate people or the less educated people, they might be accepting the innovation, but they don't know how to accept it and how to shape it up. So there is a lack of say intervention in between to shape it up. So that is actually these are the things are here to say extending use of innovation. And yeah, and I also give just give a short highlight in the agriculture sector. There is a huge innovation in agriculture sector, and Bangladesh is now um, widely using the latest technology and everything. And Bangladesh is now in a good shape in respect to food security, and also in the production system in agro-based industry, and also fishery, and the fruits production, vegetable production, a lot of things actually. But there is another bad thing is that there is a huge utilization of chemical fertilizer and pesticide. So there is using the modern technology to use the fertilizer and pesticide in the production field, but they are not aware about the optimum utilization of these things. So at the same time, you will find the same people in double standard. Say they are accepting the technology, the innovation. At the same time, they are also denying the knowledge base in innovation and information. So it's a not that only the only the say educated people are accepting the innovation, and only the illiterate people are barrier for innovation. It's not that. Actually, in both sides there are limitation to accept the innovation. Overall, I should conclude that Bangladesh is moving forward to accept the innovation, and I hope that things will be better than previous. Over to you, Mr. Shoaib.
Thank you, Mr. Jamaluddin. Mr. Gary, how can education system be transformed to support inclusive, innovation-driven economy? Gary, can you hear me? Gary, can you hear me? Mr. Rob, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Gary, you can hear me? I think you have to join again, Mr. Gary. You have to join again.
Please check his mic. Please check his mic. Is he muted or on?
He doesn't appear to be muted. If he's muted, it shows up
Can
in
you
the
hear
window.
me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I can't hear.
Oh, his sound's out.
Sure looks like
I
it.
think education systems, no matter where it is, no matter who it is, no matter how it is, must always transform to the latest of what is being projected that's going to be coming, what is being projected that the work pool is going to evolve into. I think all the systems in schooling and college and universities and from first grade up need to start changing their curricula, not massively, but tweak it to give these students an introduction into the innovative systems that are coming, innovative systems that we're using at the time that they're graduating and doing, and innovative systems that are going to be there in 10 years or 20 years. So people can start projecting what they want to study and what they want to do and what angle they want to go and where they want to go to work or what they want to start a business doing or anything like that. So all teaching universities and schools and things, they have to evolve. If they don't evolve, then we can't get better. We can't do better. We can't excel in things that we're doing. So I feel like no matter what the systems are and what it is, they need to work on looking at the future and introducing these new classes and new curriculums to be able to have introduction of these kids into these new programs, and then they can decide where they want to go.
Thank you. Mr. Rob Enderle, in what ways can public-private partnership accelerate innovation for social impact?
Well, so one of the ways to do that is one of the issues we're dealing with regard to education in particular is the fact that changes are happening so rapidly that people that are being educated are likely going to find the jobs they're being educated for may not exist once they finally graduate. And so there needs to be a much higher integration of school faculty with alumni that is not executive management, but are actually doing the jobs that they're training people to do, so that there's a cross pollination of this is what companies need going into the education institute, so they can modify the programs to address the needs. And really, it needs to look forward. This needs to be an effort not just to talk about what the needs are today, but what are the needs going to be in 2 to 3 years when the students come out of school, and clearly a major shift from degrees to skills, where you're predominantly trying to grow skills and capabilities, and not necessarily have something you can hang on the wall that may have no reference to a real job or a real career. That's always been problematic. You go into a school, you have a curriculum, you have some fundamental things that you have to take that you may never use, and then your primary focus may be obsolete by the time you exit. And so there needs to be a far tighter coupling between the educational institutions that are creating the skills for people and the people that are actually using the skills in business, so the program can real time alter itself so that the students are competitive when they come out. And I think part of this also has to be the recognition that a lot of people that have skills, particularly in emerging areas like artificial intelligence, that are self-taught, and so these people are very capable, but they may not have the certificate or the degree they need to get the job that they would otherwise be qualified for. And so here's a case where the schools also need to be flexible in allowing students that already have a set of core skills, not to audit the class, to test for the class, and then get credit for having the skill, not necessarily for completing the class, because that's what you're shooting for. You don't want a bunch of people that say, okay, we completed 800 hours of education. You want a bunch of people that can program large language models or small language models, or can understand how a particular piece of equipment works and functions, so that they can operate it or manage it. So really a hard move away from degree-based metrics and more on skill-based metrics. And then we're talking about government organizations, then making sure you're focused on people and solutions that can do the job, not people and solutions that are necessary, that are well connected, or that's a secondary attribute. Being well connected and can do the job are both very important. But right now, often with governments, it's the well connected that get the contract, not the ones that are most qualified to do it. I remember the old story about McDonnell Douglas and the B-52. The McDonnell Douglas had a flying wing design that's very much like the B-1 bomber, B-2 bomber today, and it was very functional, but they weren't as well connected, and so they lost the design win, and so the government adopted a weapon system that was suboptimal, and that often happens here. Is the company that's awarded the contract has the contacts to get the contract, but not necessarily the best skill set nor the best prototype. And so a major focus on making sure that selections go to companies that are most qualified, that efforts are made to assure those companies are staffing with the most qualified people. I'm not really talking about a huge focus on meritocracy, but that's part of it. And because meritocracy can get out of control as well. But here's a case where if you really want to have inclusive innovation, you have to make sure that at least everybody has a shot, and then the final selection is made based on competence and capability, not based on political competence or connections to the administration or to the people that are letting the bid. It is so important you get, I guess what I'm getting around to is so important you get a lot of the corruption out of the process, because corruption's an innovation and skill killer. And and what you really want to do is make sure that these things are decisions are made for the right reason, and the overall goal is for the good of the entity that is hiring the goods or services, not the good of the individual that's letting the contract. And managing it, I'm ex internal auditor. Managing that is a pain in the ass, but it's absolutely critical if you're going to create an inclusive, innovative environment, and recognizing that you're competing with the rest of the world, making sure that you maintain your competitive advantages and expand them, as opposed to bleed them out over time, which I'm kind of afraid is what's happening here at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you. We have our great scholar, Dr. Brand. Dr. Brand, thank you for joining. So
my pleasure.
We are discussing about the great innovation for inclusive growth. So what you want to discuss about these innovations for inclusive growth?
Well, I think when you say inclusive work, maybe you can help me understand that a little bit, and then I'm happy to provide some thoughts.
As we are discussing about Bangladesh, so we want community developments. We want definitely climate innovations, definitely technologies and other things. So how we can achieve this inclusive growth through different kind of innovation? You are scientist, you are inventor. What's your thought?
Well, I think keeping Bangladesh cool
Dr.
will be
Brand.
vital in the years. Can you hear me okay? Yes, I think that the keeping Bangladesh cool will be critical in future years to ensure a good rice crop. We're getting some very promising results from the Philippines that through the use of seaweed foliar biostimulants, we can increase the yields of the rice while reducing or eliminating fossil fuel-based fertilizers. Now today, the price of fossil fertilizers is high and it's going higher. And the challenge and the opportunity is to actually reduce the dependence on fossil fertilizers while developing ultimately locally grown seaweed-based biostimulants that can have a profound effect on rice yields and food security, and I would say energy security as well, because 1.5% of all energy goes into producing fossil fertilizers today. So that's one for food security in the Bangladesh area. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Brand, as you work with your climate foundations, you work in Stanford universities as well as you contribute in Philippines, you contribute in India, you contribute right now in Australia. So what's your thought about South Asia? Because right now we have challenges because of this Iran and Israel's war. Also, we have energy-related challenges. What type of innovations and global cooperations can be helpful for us, for food security, for energy security?
I would say buy as much energy, solar and batteries as possible throughout the region. Even on a cloudy day, you'll be able to run the homes, and on the sunny days, you'll be able to run the fertilizer businesses and all sorts of other businesses. So I think that's really important. And to that end, the solar and batteries cannot be overemphasized. I think procuring as much as quickly as possible will be key towards, moving, let's say, defossilization of our energy infrastructure. And that just produces national security. I mean, that's a really important aspect. The second is food security. And I would say a combination of 3 innovations will be key. And that is precision agrivoltaics is about growing vegetables, rice, and solar on the same hectares. And that's really a key opportunity. Again, emphasizing solar. That's going to be a transformation for Bangladesh, and it's something that we should be leaning into now. Secondly, precision fermentation is a way to grow enough protein for 10 billion people on the planet, and to do so using 70 times less land area than we're using presently. And so the precision fermentation is key. And the third is precision mariculture. That includes our marine permaculture work to be able to grow seaweed and fish offshore and be able to supplement the food supply, the feeds and the fertilizers. And by the way, there's a dimension of climate repair. because when you grow algae offshore, you'll contribute to the marine aerosols that will produce these marine clouds that will keep Bangladesh and India, Sundarbans, etc., cool during the difficult years to come and avoid Ministry for the Future, Chapter 1. So this is really key, is to re-brighten our planet. We've lost 2% of our brightness due to loss of marine clouds and loss of sea ice, and the need is strong. I cannot overstate the words of Professor James Hansen, who has said, we have grossly underestimated the sensitivity of the Earth system to greenhouse gases and grossly underestimated the sensitivity of the Earth system to aerosols. This has been a double error on the part of the IPCC, and our challenge and our opportunity is to realize that with the greenhouse gases already emitted, we are looking at 4.8 degrees Celsius plus or minus 1.2 degrees Celsius, peer-reviewed paper by James Hansen, that is real, based on the geologic history and the evidence of our natural history. So if you're looking at anything close to 3 degrees Celsius, we're talking major food security disruptions. We need to prepare for that now so that we can keep our regions cool, our municipalities cool. Bangladesh is close to the sea, and the Indian Ocean can provide the kind of rebrightening that'll be needed to keep our countries cool in the difficult years to come. So we must prepare for this. Finally, I will say abundant labor is all about leaning into AI capabilities, training up our ability to use AI effectively in our work, and then furthermore, prepare for lowering cost of robotics. But this is about having full employment of people to ensure food security, energy security, and labor abundance, and good governance at the same time. And I think there are new examples coming from places like Taiwan, where they've done citizens' assemblies, very effective, and also sortition. And these are very good nation-state governance practices that Bangladesh should implement and learn the lessons from Taiwan and Digital Ambassador Audrey Tang. The second is for small groups and small organizations, the Socratic Circle method is a really profound opportunity to help improve governance at the community scale. So that's our prescription for abundant energy, food, and labor with good governance at nation-state scale and community scale. Thank you.
Thank you. My next question, how can we measure whether innovation is truly contributing for inclusive growth? Dr. Brand.
Well,
then I come to Mr. David Smith.
Okay, that's fine. I would say when it comes to technology and innovation, it's about open sourcing these developments for communities and ensuring that technologies like AI are in the hands of the many rather than the hands of the few. If we emphasize open source models like the frontier models coming from NVIDIA, Nemotron 3, they just released their nano and super models, and within the next quarter, they'll release the Ultra model, which is over 500 billion parameters, state-of-the-art frontier model with open weights, open source code, and open training. This is the key to enable people to develop their own AI models in the future and ensure that AI will be in the hands of the many rather than the few. AI is inevitable, but the last thing we want is to have it be dominated by just a few players. We need to ensure ubiquitous AI, and this will be the key to making that happen.
Thank you. Mr. David Smith, what's your thought about that?
Well, I agree that
Mr. David Smith.
I agree you're going to see the models begin to expand. And I take a little bit different approach. I think the LLMs are there, but there's inherent problems with LLMs, no matter how much processor we throw at it, because of just the built-in biases from how the data is collected. Where I see where particularly the inclusive growth will come is we begin to build AI tools that make it easier for us to create our own small learning modules, that make it easier for us to create our own custom repositories of information, be it for a family, be it for a small business, a medium business, be it for communities wherever they're located in the globe. We have seen, going back decades and decades, when we began to apply the precursors of what became AI, that there were challenges in beginning to do that. Back when I was an executive at the MCC Consortia, we had one of our premier AI researchers, Doug Lynette, trying to create a common sense AI tool. Billions of dollars are spent on that. And it really became to the conclusion that the variables were so broad, particularly when we looked at them outside of a very self-contained ecosystem, that AI as a tool couldn't handle all those variables, particularly if we tried to do it on a global basis, which is what LLMs are trying to do. And we've seen biases where some of the LLMs did not represent Asia well, where some of them do not represent Africa and still don't represent Africa well, and others. So we've got to go and look and see, how can we prepare ourselves? Use the large tools like Brian was talking about, but we really need to build models where we address the care-abouts of each of the individuals. When I led the first semiconductor roadmap with such a diverse group of fiercely competitive companies, we could not use the basis of the entire semiconductor as how to look at innovation on an inclusive basis. We had to understand the individual care-abouts. We had to work there. We had to put compromises in place in some instances to let the industry begin to excel back then. And we're seeing the same thing today. But Dr. Sharif, I believe as we look at this whole thing, we have to measure things like who benefits first, who benefits second, what's the big winners, where do the startups valuations go, where does the funding go, where do patents go, and other things, and understand how that takes place. Again, we need to look at all the different forms of capital, though, not just the content capital, but the human capital, the social capital, the financial capital, the institutional capital. And yes, we need to look at the physical capital as well, as we're moving into a time where sensors and robotics and automation are going to totally shape what we're trying to do across society today. And we have the opportunity to get there because, again, inclusive innovation is about the entire ecosystem. It's not just the outcome, it's who gets to participate. It's who gets in there. How do we shape an ecosystem where the stakeholders there, where things like we talked about earlier in your program, Dr. Sharif, today, like lifelong learning, how does the Technopolis come into play? All of those have to be part of answering your question on this one, Dr. Sharif. And you know, I just want to thank you again for letting me be part of the program again today.
Thank you. Thank you. From our World Talent Economic Forum Innovation Lab, you know, we do all of the research and startup ecosystem development. Definitely, Dr. Brian, IBEON, Rob Enderle, all of your contributions actually create a very interesting aspect. Last couple of years, I do research with 144 research centers around the world for agriculture innovations, and we are publishing our scientific books through IGI Global and through the Princeton University. So this is the digital model we have right now, integrated digitalization of operating with AI-driven genomic selections. We do focus on field operation digitalizations. So digital infrastructure is very important. So the Western world corporations like IBEON can help us to develop this infrastructure, full life cycle visibility, and thirdly, a genomic selection engine. From there, what we prefer with our digital infrastructure, with our mobile fast data entry, agronomics, real-time monitoring of the field, experiment across distributed locations, QR coding of plots to eliminate human error in data collections, as well as complete history of every seed variety, because country like Bangladesh, we have lot of seeds, lot of agriculture innovations. We want to welcome that. Automated workflow ensuring protocols are followed at every breeding stage, then monitoring multiplication stage to ensure genetic purities, optimizations of the land uses, fertilizer and labor. I think Dr. Brand mentioned this in very effective way. And for this genomic selection, select the best candidate in silo before planting a single seed. So more than 80% accuracy in predicting, as well as we can reduce selection cycle time and skipping yearly of the preliminary field trials. Through this process, like field operation digitalizations, full life cycle visibilities, and genomic selection engine, we can create a AI-driven genomic selection process, and hopefully it will be very good innovation for agriculture. We go for detailed research last 3 years. We visit all of the places and all of the things, and hopefully through this process we can bring agricultural innovations as well as food security for Bangladesh. Dr. Brad, what's your closing remarks? Besides that, you have a lot of intellectual achievement through your innovations, uh, through different kind of grant and fund. Even Elon Musk Foundation is also investing in your company. How Bangladesh or South Asia can build up a innovation hub and invite you all, as well as the global North high quality corporation, to investing in Bangladesh for inclusive growth.
Well, there are specific natural resources that Bangladesh and India should be leveraging. For example, in the Sundarbans, you have over 3 meters of tides, and it's a great opportunity to help use natural energy to actually bring the needed nutrients to the algae and seaweed to regenerate fish production offshore, also to protect the shoreline from increasing sea level rise and the increasing number of typhoons in the area. And thus we can protect the rice farmer. We can encourage the rice farmer to practice a number of ideally best practices to increase yields and reduce fertilizer usage. Then furthermore, you have many shrimp farmers near the coast. And these shrimp farmers can be encouraged to practice mangrove shrimp, which enables shrimp and mangroves on the same hectares. And this is a new opportunity because the mangroves actually protect the shrimp farm from the typhoons and the high sea level, high inundation levels. And so this presents a good triple win opportunity to regenerate ecosystem services with the mangroves around the edges of the shrimp cultivations. And this is a major reform that can transform the coastline and really enable, let's say, protection of the rest of nature. One of our advisors, Tom Chi, has done a TED Talk just 2 months ago, and he emphasized that all of economy is embedded within ecology. And so if we want to build a sustainable economy, we must consider what is sustainable ecology. How do we protect the rest of nature? How do we enable the restoration of those ecosystem services? And how do we ensure regeneration of our food security and our brightness levels on the planet so we can keep ocean planet Earth cool while we are getting our carbon budgets back into balance? This is a key opportunity, and I think the Sundarbans region front and center for preserving the rest of nature while we're ensuring food security for 10 billion people and habitat for 8 million species.
Excellent. Mr. Jamal, what's your closing remarks for today? Mr. Jamaluddin. Mr. Jamal, are you with me? Mr. Robin, what's your... Yeah.
Yeah,
Mr. Jamal.
Thank you very much for giving me the concluding remark. In fact, Bangladesh is a playground to introduce innovation in all of the sector. It's agriculture, it's industrial, or infrastructure, or banking or financial sector. Everywhere you will find the opportunity. And in my recent days working with public-private partnership in with government sector, I realized there is a huge opportunity in the agriculture innovation, especially in the supply chain management. In Bangladesh, there is a huge seasonal surplus of agro crops, especially potato, say tomato, then sweet gourd, then a lot of perishable item as well, even mango and other different type of fruits, and this kind of seasonal surplus. Just talking into the potato, Bangladesh actually lose more than 40% potato every year due to the surplus and production, and there is no say agro processing plant and export processing facilities and storage, improved storage system. At the same time, Bangladesh has to import a lot of onion, every year. However, if you look into the overall production and the demand, the production is surplus than the demand. However, there is a loss of say waste due to preservation system. There is Bangladesh has to import onion from different countries. So that is how there are a lot of areas there is need of innovation and sustainable management and inclusive growth, as the farmer are producing with their effort, and they are not getting the price competitive price during the season, and after the season, once they have left everything from their hand, then the price is high. So actually farmer are now not benefited. So I would recommend to give the emphasize in the agricultural sector, as well as the youth population, utilization of the youth population. Say for example, in Bangladesh, there are a lot of people are unemployed or say underemployed, and these people have skill mindset, and they have actually skill to contribute in the IT sector, and also say business management system remotely here. So if there is a opportunity to develop the skill of this young population and mainstream them in the global economy, then Bangladesh could be a great hub for business management and contribute to the global economy as well as the local. So this is all about from my side. Thank you, Mr. Shori, for giving me the opportunity again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rob. What's your closing remarks?
Well, I used to be the leading battery analyst for the world. Haven't been in a couple of decades, but the reference using solar and battery power, I think I should apply some clarification. The problem with solar and battery right now is it's going through a massive amount of change. Regular cells are not yielding enough power, and lithium ion has become as much a problem as it has a benefit. You're doing it to now. You're not talking about I always pronounce this wrong, but perovskite silicon tandem technology is now the cutting edge, and what you're looking at is bifacial tandem modules. In other words, modules that can generate power from both sides. And then if you move, as we're talking about batteries, mentioned lithium ion is down now, particularly for we're talking about city-state infrastructures. We're talking sodium ion is now the new emerging technology. It's a lot cheaper. It seems to be holding up quite a bit better. And then if you're going for long storage, 100 hours plus, you're talking about iron air batteries. They're way cheaper than silicon, and their storage capability is unmatched at the moment, at least with regard to cost performance. And then finally, what people are forgetting is the grids that we have are based on grid following technology, which was fine with traditional generation methods, but you really need to move to a grid forming technology, GFM. Otherwise, your grids aren't going to handle a massive influx of solar. The grids have to be stabilized and managed in a way that they can handle the influx of distributed energy sources. But here's the important part. This is changing almost quarterly, and so what you've got to do is not only anticipate what technology is coming. In other words, provide an upgrade path. We used to call them forklift upgrades when you came in with a new technology and it couldn't apply to the old stuff. So you had to rip out everything and replace it. That's very expensive if you haven't actually built with the idea that you're going to be replacing this stuff on a fairly regular basis. So part of your design decision needs to be that the stuff you're putting in, even if you do the best job and it's as long lasting as possible, it's likely you're going to have to replace it far before it wears out. And the end result means you have to build these infrastructure systems with the idea that they can be easily upgraded and replaced. And then, of course, you've got the whole issue with regard to localization, what we're seeing with data centers, and the very high potential of being able to use alternative energy sources. Geothermal and small nuclear are being highlighted as ways to locally power these data centers, so you're not overly loading the grid. These data centers are doing horrible things for energy prices in the communities around them, and there's a lot of push to make sure that data centers get their own energy generation to make sure that doesn't happen. And that's it for me. But be very careful on energy. It's changing a lot right now, and so you have to allow and anticipate that change.
Those are great
Thank
points,
you.
Rob. I'd just like to add from Australia that there are a number of key innovations that I think Bangladesh and others could benefit from. The Australians have pioneered roll-to-roll perovskite solar, which promises to have great economics, and that's really a technology that's approaching commercialization, and it's something that would be great to facilitate, because ultimately it means solar at the price of newsprint rather than the price of baking silicon cookies. So it's a great transition there. The second is that the Australian federal government has more than doubled the home energy storage credit for putting batteries in the home. There have been more than 100,000 homes that have taken advantage of the credit already. And we're looking at expanding the program to over $7 billion, I believe, and they're accelerating that deployment. So expect a good fraction of 1 million homes to be getting those home energy storage credits. I will point out the carbon intensity of the utility grid dropped just 10% in 20 years under the old grid-based reform programs, from around 950 kilograms of CO2 per megawatt hour to 850. That's a 0.5% improvement per year. And yet this home energy storage credit could single-handedly result in double-digit carbon intensity reductions for the electrical power grid. So it's extremely promising. Finally, I'll close with the notes from Tony Seba and James Arbib with respect to the stellar technologies, and that is we can expect, based on what Rob has been talking about, the sodium-ion batteries, the new solar, an 80% reduction in energy storage costs over the next 10 years, and a 70% reduction in solar PV costs over the next 10 years. So we're loving that, and let's lean into the future, ensure that Bangladesh and other countries can adopt and leapfrog and really use the latest technologies from Australia and elsewhere. And we're looking forward to leaning into an abundant future with the price of electricity in 2025 terms, less than a penny per kilowatt hour in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. David Smith, what's your closing remarks for today?
I really enjoyed these last two short discussions about the energy usage, and just make a couple points on that, and I'll make a final remark there. I had the privilege of leading for the U.S. military and intelligence community a 50-year roadmap on high energy density storage that looked at not only all the types of energy that's been discussed, but quite a few others. And one of the big outcomes from that is, particularly if we recognize that one of our goals is not just to produce energy, but to produce precision power. And precision power, particularly distributed through microgrids and other things like that, is one of the things that will help us really look at an inclusive area to meet the needs where they happen, just like we're beginning to see around the world with point of use power generation for data centers and other things like that. But the hybrid solution is going to be one of the things which I think is critical. And it might include photo, it might include geothermal, and places that have large currents and things on the coast like Australia. It might include kinetic energy generation from waves and other things like that to be part of that equation. But the real thing on that is, as you look at it, a lot of those do not give you out of the bat precision power. So you have to look at ways to manage that. And the operating system for energy is something that dramatically needs to be upgraded. We spend a lot of time looking at source generation and debating source generation. But then we forget down the road of how we're going to manage it, how we're going to pursue it's there. And that has to be done in an innovative way to be effective today. And, you know, we talk about nuclear. Well, there's a lot of things where radioisotopes can generate power for small areas, for small communities and things without actually having the nuclear element in it, where the heat from it, if you look at our spacecraft that are now 1 billion miles away from the Earth, their source of power is a decaying radioisotope and not a nuclear reactor. So you see things like that that can be brought to bear and used in different areas without some of the bad press you see on many of these different things. I live, as you know, Dr. Sharif, in Austin, Texas. And we get pretty warm here during the summer, and solar panels are kind of interesting because they're great until it gets too hot, and they're great until it gets too cold with ice. So you've got to look at where their sweet spots are. And that's kind of what we do. But, you know, as we look ahead, one truth is really unmistakable. Innovation is only meaningful when it really looks at solving problems, where it looks at giving us a new advantage, where it looks at how to benefit society, how to do things in new ways that we haven't done before. And we need to make sure that it is done in a way where growth is only sustainable with these new opportunities when it's shared. And progress is only real where it reaches across the various stakeholders and we meet the needs of the stakeholders. And, you know, we have many of the tools now. We have the data which helps drive AI. AI without data is a bankrupt proposition. We have digital infrastructure. We have many new approaches we're beginning to see in fintech and DeFi that's going to let us build an economy that is more dynamic than anything we know in place in the past. But the technology, as I said before, is not going to deliver. It's going to take leadership. It's going to take group intelligence. It's going to take the stakeholders coming together. It's going to take intentional design. And all of these have to come together so that we can be deliberate about innovation. We can be deliberate about addressing the needs of the broader stakeholders in today's society. And Dr. Sharif, once we do that, I believe we'll be very successful and we'll see innovation ride that Fisher-Price S-curve as we go in the future on an inclusive basis.
Thank you. Before conclusion remarks from Dr. Brian, I just want to share for our Bangladeshi audience and for our South Asian audience, World Talent Economic Forum institutions, we are launching the CEO Development Program. All of the speakers, those who joined today, Mr. Rob Enderle, Mr. David Smith, Dr. Brian, all of the famous people from around the world, from Harvard, from MIT, from Stanford, from Cambridge, from industries, from venture capitals, from financial institutions. They are joining as a mentor for our youth developments. Also, we have our longevity research and innovations. We have our summit, and this is our healthcare dojo. We have our healthcare AI dojo system. We can create the video polls, we can go for AI screen, and we can create more job opportunities for Bangladeshi people, specifically for healthcare industries in the global arena. So, Mr. Jamal, if Bangladeshi students and the people or any young people they want to join in our system, they can join and they can get great mentorships. What you are observing today, Dr. Brand, what's your closing remarks for today? And
Oh, thank you.
finish
Well,
the
I
program.
really appreciate the remarks of all the people here. I'm intrigued with the notion of precision power. I think the transmission and distribution of that power locally on microgrids is going to be vital. Community abundance of energy, food, and labor is going to be absolutely vital, along with good governance that really moves beyond the tyranny of autocracy, moves beyond the tyranny of the majority in a democracy, and moves towards a consent of the governed in an inclusive process. And thus, we have the frameworks today at community scale for good governments and also at nation state scale. And so I think we've got the opportunity to ensure that this abundance that is right around the corner for us to move beyond extractionary processes and towards, once you build a good renewable energy battery framework, that will produce power for decades to come with no more inputs, no more fossil fuels needed. Same thing for the food security with precision fermentation, precision agrivoltaics, and precision mariculture. Once you build these systems, they'll produce food for decades. And finally, with AI, an abundance of energy and labor and robotics coming, we'll have an abundance of labor. And thus, I think there'll be an opportunity for universal basic services to understand and have a safety net for the basic offtake rights, if you will, that each person should have as residents of the stellar communities we hope to build in the coming years. So I think the future is potentially extremely bright. We simply need to dedicate a larger percentage of our endowment, and that is the carbon pulse of energy that we've been given over the past 2 centuries. What percentage of that endowment can we redirect towards post-extractionary wealth? That is the key. Post-extractionary abundance of energy, food, and labor. That's our challenge and opportunity. If we can dedicate more of this cheap energy that we have right now towards building towards the future, I believe that's going to build an inclusive approach that will ensure that these technologies are in the hands of the many and that can ensure abundance for people all around the world. Thank you, Dr. Sharif.
Thank you everyone for joining today's session. So I request all of our audience, please share our content with the government agency, corporation, and academia. Thank you, Mr. Rob. Thank you, Mr. David Smith. Thank you, Dr. Brand. And thank you, Mr. Jamaluddin, for your continuous support. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.